Which the parts of yourself you spent years hiding are actually the keys to your freedom? Today, we're diving into self-acceptance. Not the Instagram version, but the raw, transformative kind that changes everything. Self-acceptance is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in healing work. It's not about loving everything about yourself or pretending your struggles don't exist. It's about something far more radical. Acknowledging all parts of your reality without the desperate need to fix, change, or hide them. Growing up with a mother who struggled with schizophrenia, I learned early to fragment myself. There was the part that felt ashamed of our family's chaos, the part that was fiercely protective of her, the part that resented the burden of her care, and the part that felt guilty for that resentment. For years, I could only accept the good parts: the caregiver, the understanding daughter, the one who had it all together. The parts that felt angry, overwhelmed, or secretly wished for another mother, those parts lived in shadow, creating an exhausting internal civil war. One of the most challenging aspects of self-acceptance when you've grown up in a complex family situation is accepting that certain truths can feel like betrayal. I remember the first time I allowed myself to fully acknowledge that I was angry at my mother, not just at her illness, but at her. At the ways she had been emotionally unavailable, even during her lucid moments, and how her needs had consumed so much of my emotional landscape that I had lost touch with my own. Accepting this anger felt dangerous. It contradicted the narrative I had built of myself as a compassionate, understanding daughter. It threatened the careful balance I had maintained between love and resentment, duty and self-preservation. But here's what I discovered. Accepting that anger didn't make me a bad person. It made me a whole person. It allowed me to finally integrate the full spectrum of my experience instead of living in the exhausting performance of partial truths. Self-acceptance is particularly challenging for those of us who developed perfectionist tendencies as survival mechanisms. When your family environment was unpredictable, being good often felt like the only way to maintain some semblance of stability and safety. I spent years trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect caregiver. I believed that if I could just be good enough, understanding enough, patient enough, somehow our family dynamics would heal. My worth became tied to my ability to manage everyone else's emotions while appearing unaffected by the chaos. This perfectionism extended into every area of my life. I couldn't accept making mistakes, having needs, feeling overwhelmed, or anything less than being completely capable. The parts of me that were struggling, confused, or simply human were banished to the shadows. Self-acceptance meant dismantling this prison of perfectionism, not to become careless or sloppy, but to become real. My journey with photography revealed something unexpected about acceptance. When I began documenting my mother's condition, I thought I was practicing radical acceptance of her reality. I was witnessing her illness without trying to fix it, capturing her truth without judgment. But I wasn't extending that same compassionate witnessing to myself. Through the camera lens, I could accept her paranoia, her confusion, her moments of clarity and darkness. Yet I couldn't accept my own complexity, my simultaneous love and exhaustion, my grief for the mother I never had, alongside appreciation for the one I did have. The breakthrough came when I realized that my photography wasn't just documenting her journey. It was documenting our relationship, which necessarily included my experience. Those images held not just her truth, but mine, my perspective, my emotions, my way of seeing and coping. When I finally exhibited the collection, The Space Between the Cracks, I had to accept myself as someone whose experience was worthy of witness, whose perspective mattered, whose complex emotional reality deserved acknowledgement. One of the hardest aspects of self-acceptance in my journey was acknowledging what I call the caregiver's shadow. All the feelings that caregivers aren't supposed to have. The moments when I felt trapped by responsibility, the times I resented having to visit her when I had my own life to live. The part of me that sometimes wished her illness would progress quickly rather than keeping us all in prolonged limbo. The relief I occasionally felt when visits were canceled. These weren't noble feelings. They didn't fit the narrative of the devoted daughter, but they were human feelings, and denying them only gave them more power over me. Self-acceptance meant acknowledging that I could simultaneously love my mother deeply and feel burdened by her care. I could have compassion for her illness while also grieving my own losses. I could be grateful for the ways her condition taught me empathy while also angry about the childhood I never had. This isn't contradiction. This is the full spectrum of human experience. Here's a simple but powerful practice that helped me build genuine self-acceptance. It's called the honest inventory. Each evening, spend 5 minutes acknowledging 3 things. One feeling you had today that you judged yourself for having: anger, jealousy, fear, sadness, overwhelm, etc. One action you took that didn't align with your ideal self: snapped at someone, avoided responsibility, made a choice from fear, etc. One aspect of your current situation that you've been resisting accepting: a relationship dynamic, a limitation, a loss, etc. For each item, practice this phrase: this is part of my human experience right now, and I don't need to fix or change it to be worthy of acceptance. The goal isn't to celebrate these aspects, but to stop expending energy fighting their existence. This practice builds your capacity to hold your full reality with compassion. Our culture is obsessed with self-improvement, which often becomes another form of self-rejection. The message is always, you're not enough as you are, but you could be with enough work. True self-acceptance flips this script. It says, you are enough as you are, and from this foundation of acceptance, any growth you choose becomes an expression of self-love rather than self-improvement. This doesn't mean becoming complacent or avoiding growth. It means that your worth isn't conditional on becoming someone different. You don't need to fix yourself to deserve love, belonging, or acceptance, including your own. From this foundation, any changes you make come from abundance rather than from scarcity, from compassion rather than self-criticism. Part of self-acceptance involves acknowledging and accepting the coping mechanisms you develop to survive difficult circumstances, even the ones that no longer serve you. I had to accept that I became hypervigilant as a survival skill, that I learned to prioritize others' emotional needs over my own as a way to maintain connection, that I developed perfectionist tendencies to feel some control in an uncontrollable environment. These adaptations weren't character flaws. They were intelligent responses to challenging circumstances. Accepting them allowed me to work with them compassionately rather than fighting against myself. You might need to accept your tendency to people please, your difficulty trusting, your habit of overgiving, your struggle with boundaries, or your resistance to vulnerability. These patterns developed for good reasons. Accepting them is the first step towards gentle transformation. When you truly accept yourself, shadows and all, something remarkable happens. You naturally become more accepting of others. You stop needing people to be different than they are to feel comfortable. You can witness their struggles without taking responsibility for fixing them. My relationship with my mother transformed when I stopped trying to be the perfect daughter and started being the honest one. I could be present with her without sacrificing my own emotional well-being. I could offer care without resentment because I was no longer forcing myself into a role that didn't fit. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or uncaring. It means caring from a place of genuine choice rather than compulsive obligation. This week, I challenge you to try the daily inventory of truth practice. Notice which aspects of yourself you've been working hardest to change or hide, and practice simple acceptance of their existence. What happens to your energy when you stop fighting yourself? Share one insight from this practice in the comments below. Remember, self-acceptance isn't about giving up on growth. It's about creating a foundation of worthiness from which all healthy growth begins. You don't need to become someone different to deserve acceptance. You deserve it right now, exactly as you are. Next week, we'll explore self-discovery and how acceptance opens the door to understanding who you're truly meant to become. Until then, take good care.